Good evening. My name is Jim Richards, and for those of you who don't know me, I'm sorry, that's my fault. I'll remedy that situation next time I see you. I am an elder in First Church and a member of session currently. I teach a Sunday school class. And when I was asked to do the April 1st Lenten service, I heartily agreed to do it. I thought that was a great idea. But since we're not having the service, then I've been asked if I would do something else instead, a video that you can watch at home, which I think is another good idea, and happy to do that as well. So what you're getting is Jim Unplugged, not a rehearsed presentation at all, but I thought I would talk a little bit about a subject that is important to me. And of course, Lent is a time leading up to Easter week, when we're to reflect on Easter week, the events leading up to Easter week, culminating in the event of Easter week itself. So I thought about what to do, and I came up with an idea and a challenge for you. So what I'd like to do is start and show you, I went around the house and I collected all the Bibles I could find. I'm sure there are a couple more sitting around somewhere. And I thought I'd show you a couple of them. This is one that I got when I was confirmed in the Episcopal Church, St. John's actually, and I received this Bible, King James Version, of course, being very Episcopalian. This one is a Revised Standard, and this one I got, and I can't remember when I got this one. I might have, well, let's see, this came from, well, there it is. This is when Lisa and I, my wife Lisa, and I were married August 16th, 1980. And we got this, I'm guessing we probably got this from her parents. Good Presbyterians. And then this one, a King James Version. This one I got when I graduated from Hampton, Sydney, back in also 1980, actually. And so that's one. I have a couple here from my wife, Lisa, and this one she was given back when she was 5 years old in 1963. I guess I shouldn't have said that. Anyway, this was from her parents, and you see it has a handy little zipper. This is another one, a Revised Standard that she got when she was 8, I think, from First Presbyterian Church in Newport News, where she grew up and where we were married. And then I have some others here as well, and then I have a great big old honking thing here that my wife gave me that is absolutely, it's just a beautiful book. I mean, you'd have to look inside at the illustrations. It's maybe 100 years old, and it is just as nice as it can be. It was a great present. I have really enjoyed it. So the challenge that I have for you that I'd like you to do is, when we think about the Easter story and the events leading up to Easter, what better way than to go to the source material? The reason I brought out all these Bibles is because we have a whole lot of them, and they're given on very special occasions and meaningful landmarks in our lives. But the question is, how often do we actually read any of them? I mean, they're all here, but if you're like me, or at least until the past few years, they don't get pulled off the shelf a lot. So what I'm asking you to do is this Easter week is just pull it off the shelf. And I'm not talking about reading it cover to cover, which is kind of pointless anyway. It's just a dash to the end at that point. And I'm not talking about reading it and parsing every third word and looking for hidden meanings that just aren't there in the text. But rather what I'm talking about is, let's read one gospel, which is really the way that these things are meant to be done. And what I've asked you to do is, let's choose Mark. And if you can look, just looking along the edge, that's as thick as Mark is. It's called a book of the Bible, but of course it's not a book, it's a short story. And in my book, it's 20 pages long. That's all there is. And it is a great story. And the author of Mark writes really a very powerful and dynamic story of the life of Jesus. It has drama, it has pathos, it has humor, tragedy, triumph. It has all of the great things. It has a wonderful cast of characters. The flamboyant hero, leader, the man of action, Jesus. He's here, he's there, he's everywhere. He's teaching over here. He's performing a miracle over here. He goes from place to place. And the poor disciples can hardly keep up with him physically, and they certainly can't keep up with him mentally or intellectually as you go through the reading. But it's the shortest. It's probably chronologically the first. Luke, Matthew use Mark as a lot of source material. They use other sources as well that are lost to us. But in its simplicity and in its brevity, I think, is its real power. It's my favorite gospel, which is why I'm asking you to share, and I'll read it too for the umpteenth time, but I always get something wonderful more out of it. And again, read it like it's intended to be read. And back in the 1st century A.D., or whatever they call it now, that would have been out loud. I had a friend of mine once tell me that he understood Shakespeare because he read it out loud to himself. And I said to my friend, that's amazing. I do the same thing because I can understand it. Well, the Bible's kind of the same way. And why is that? The reason is because, like Shakespeare, it's really meant to be heard. And so if you read it out loud, or better yet, read it to another or to your family, share the reading a little bit, be a listener, be a reader, then the power of the story comes through when we read it as one story, because that's what the author intends. This is the author of Mark, who doesn't pretend to be an eyewitness to these accounts. He's writing an account of the ministry of Jesus. He's writing an account of the Jesus of faith for the people of faith. This is meant to be read by the faithful. This is not a tool to go out and convert people. That's preaching. That's what Paul did. Paul went and preached, and then he taught. So when you read this and you start, and he says, the beginning of the gospel of Jesus Christ, the Son of God. In other words, what he's saying, this is the gospel. This is the good news I'm going to tell you. And all the way through, it builds inexorably to an amazing climax. And you can watch it as you're reading. You can see the story build and build and build and build to the moment of climax at the trial and on the cross, and the political intrigue that goes on during that time. And then all the way to the end, which I will tell you, I'll give you a little hint, is chapter 16, verse 8 in the original versions. Now, you've got parts that are after that. You have verses after that, 9 through 20. But they were probably added later, and they deal with the accounts of the resurrection and the ascension of Christ. And added later, though when added, it's because even at the time of Mark, remember the letters of Paul are even older than the accounts of Mark, and the letters of Paul include accounts of the resurrection and the ascension. And Mark ends here, and he ends at the empty tomb. And they see a youth. The women are there. They see a youth. And he saith unto them, be not affrighted. Well, this is the King James Version, sorry. You can read another if you want. Read one that you like, that you understand. And he saith unto them, be not affrighted. Ye seek Jesus of Nazareth, which was crucified. He is risen. That's the Easter story. He is not here. Behold the place where they laid him. But go your way. Tell his disciples and Peter that he goeth before you unto Galilee. There shall ye see him, as he said unto you. And they went out quickly and fled from the sepulchre. For they trembled and were amazed. Neither said they anything to any man, for they were afraid. And there ends Mark's original gospel story. And it's interesting, why does he end it there? It's fascinating stuff to think about and read. So my challenge to you is to read this and read it with this understanding. What the gospel writer is trying to get across. He's not writing a list of moral values. This isn't intended to be an historical account of the every day of the life and ministry of Jesus and everything he said quoted verbatim. This is an account of the Jesus of faith. And this is the story that is being told to you. And the writer of the gospel is clear in his intention. What he wants you to see is he wants to answer the great, big, most important question in Christianity. And that is, who is Jesus Christ? And that's what he says. Jesus Christ in here is a man of mystery. Who is he? He drops hints to the disciples who are just really the keystone cops of the whole story. They never get it. Never. He drops hints. He tells parables. The point of his miracles, the point of the parables, they are all pointed to who is Jesus. The disciples just don't ever seem to understand. They never get it. Even finally when Peter says, "You are the Christ," the next sentence, he gets it wrong again. And you can just see Jesus rolling his eyes. They just don't get it. But for a good part of the story, he doesn't really want people to know. That's why he speaks in riddles. Because the time is not ready for Jesus yet to be known. And that's how the story builds, and that's the culmination that it builds up to. So join me if you would, and read, there it is again, just that little sliver of the New Testament, little sliver of the Bible, Mark. It will not take very long. It's a great read when properly read. It's a great and wonderful story. I'll make you this offer too. Those who read it and would like to talk more about it, I taught a not too terribly long Sunday school class where we didn't really parse every third word, but we got into a little bit more detail, and I could tell people or help them see what a lot of the parables were intended to convey to the disciples and others about Jesus, and a little bit about how the story builds and show you the dramatic set pieces that the author puts in here to lead you to the conclusion, because he draws you into this story. You become a part of this story. You want to reach out and shake Peter by the shoulder and say, don't you see who he is? And that's the great thing about this. Quite often we think of Scripture as something we read as a backup plan. But the truth of the matter is, there really aren't as many good stories out there as they are in this. So I hope you will join me. Read the version of your choice. A lot of them are good. Some of the more modern ones are a little bit more approachable. Remember, Mark was written in actually a very simple Greek. So a very straightforward English version is a very good way to read it. But again, read it to yourself, read it out loud. I think you'll enjoy it more. So anyway, that's what I have to say for today. I wish you all well in this time of crisis that we seem to be going through. We have time on our hands, so I hope you will take me up on my offer. And I look forward to seeing you when we get back to church. Thank you.